Karin, Fiona, Steve, thank you for being here today. I'm glad we've started with introductions, and our first point on the agenda is Diagonal Bio. I'm very pleased to have Karin Wehlin with us today, the CEO of Swedish Equine Health Tech company Diagonal Bio. Karin will tell us a little bit about how their new solution detects equine herpes and influenza. And I'm sure this will lead to a very interesting discussion around welfare, outbreak prevention, and hopefully safer competition environments. Karin, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mance. Well, a brief introduction so I can get everyone on board is going back to the pandemic. So I'm sure that Steve is also with us. We swabbed our noses and the samples were sent away and we got the answer like 48 hours later. And meanwhile, we had other protections, of course, during that period, but the horses doesn't have that kind of protection. So meanwhile, the spreading of viruses is huge if you come together, of course. So this company was actually founded during the pandemic, aiming for human diagnostics, but we also found halfway through that there is a market there for veterinarian, and we got some interest from horse veterinarians, but also then horse coaches or trainers, breeders here in Sweden, and some also from a competition area. So we run some pilots, but the thing is that our analytical instrument is able to detect the viruses within 15 minutes. So the way you take the sample is the same way as you take it when you sent it away, but you have a point of care instrument. You have a panel of 6 different virus types. So you can either have one horse and 6 different pathogens or viruses, or you can have one pathogen in all the 6 wells, and then you sample from 6 horses. So we can design the panel from what the customer would like to optimize for. And also one starting point of going into the equine well-being or welfare was the fact that in Valencia in 2021, 400 or 500 horses came together, and they do yearly. And one of, or many, I don't know how many, but there was HV1, herpes virus 1, that spread. And they took some samples, sent it away to Switzerland to a certified laboratory. But within 48 hours, a lot of horses were then caught with HV1. So I think it was about 100 horses and more than 20 that had to be put down. So, I mean, this is expensive horses as well. And therefore, we continue to work on this track by can we contribute to increased well-being, but also more safety at horse tracks, racing, and so forth, where a lot of different horses come together, and you can't always tell from looking at the horse or even take a temperature of the horse. It's what's required. It's a vaccination card to participate, but then there's no other tests at site that would give you a very quick answer.
And Karin, if you wouldn't mind, I mean, I have a number of questions. How is the swab taken?
It's taken in is it mule in English?
Is it in the nostril?
Yeah, in nostril, yeah. And you don't have to go back to the really deep one. It's perfectly fine in the nostril.
So anyone that knows how to handle a horse can take the sample. It doesn't have to be a vet.
No, we have trainers here in Sweden that do it at their own stables. They're not trained. They're trained by us, but they're not trained laboratory people.
So I suppose any groom or coach, trainer, anyone that knows how to handle a horse can take the sample.
Yes, correct.
So the sample is taken from the horse's nostril and then placed into the device on site, and you receive a positive or negative result within 15 minutes.
Yeah, there's in between there, you need to prepare the sample. So you take the swab and put it into a lysis buffer, that's what it's called, and then you release the DNA, RNA from virus or bacteria. And then we have our special reaction mix from the company and a cartridge that you put this in 8 different, where you have the 6 different genetic markers. You put it in the instrument, and then it takes 15 minutes to get you the answer. And can we really trust this answer then? Yes, we have had 2 different external validations at the University of Copenhagen and also the Danish Technical University. They have done sampling of different equine viruses and the influenza run in our machine and then compared with the PCR instrument. The PCR is what they have at central labs, which takes the 48 hours due to logistics, of course, but also 3-4 hours to get the result, the actual result in the PCR. And we have 100% correlation to PCR.
So if the accuracy is the same, and I suppose the main advantage of the solution is the immediacy of it. But is it also cheaper? Is it more expensive than a standard PCR?
Right now, we are a listed public company in Sweden, so I don't really want to talk about the prices, but we are equal to, I would say, sending away to central lab. But then you take into consideration that you get the answer within 15 minutes. But the instruments as such is cheaper than a PCR because that's a very expensive piece of equipment. And our testing is equal or maybe a bit more expensive, but it's not a huge difference.
But the point is you're basically making a very expensive technology not expensive and accessible at real point of need, if we can call it that.
Yeah, exactly. And we have trainers that never done this kind of work before, and they would like to know, can we train this horse today ahead of a competition, or should I actually let him be or the horse be? Should the horse be competing at all during the weekend, or what's the status of it? And they really appreciate it, really taking care of their horses and be aware of that. They can't tell me how they feel, but we need to find out, and we need to isolate as quickly as possible, if anything, if there's an outbreak.
Or isolate and treat. I personally don't, thankfully, have no experience with equine herpes, but I have experience with equine influenza, and I know that before the symptoms start, the horse is already a bit tired, and. Fiona, how much experience do you have with herpes?
Not with herpes, with influenza. Many years ago, I was stable manager for 100 ponies at Pony Club Camp, and one came in with flu, and we spent an awful lot of time every day taking temperatures, and within 2 days we had to shut down and send everybody home.
Send all the horses. You had to send all the horses away.
Yeah, shut the camp, and that was that. Yep. So I'm sure it's a very, very useful, because flu is very, very quickly spread, isn't it? What I was going to ask, Karin, is does strangles come into the testing, or is that
it does.
Because that is a huge problem as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's under development, and we have so so the sort of the core business for us is, apart from the instrument, is to develop primers, targets of interest for horse trainers or the horse segment. And those primers in this technology, it requires very special knowledge, how you pick the right target for the genetic marker. So we have done some on the strangles, and we have done extracted DNA, RNA, which means that it's not coming directly from the horse. It has been extracted before, and we have been made sure that, yes, the target is there, this is working, but then we haven't been able to get samples from a horse owner on real strangles. So that's where we are at the moment. We before we can validate or anything, we need to do the full sort of supply chain from the horse to our instrument, and then have the correlation also to the PCR.
Because I know that's strangles is particularly a tricky one, because they are often carriers, aren't they, with that? And there is a guttural pouch test, isn't there, at the minute? But
and
is it useful.
Prevalent in the UK?
It can be, yes, can be. So and I think it's more sneaky than than influenza. It's a more difficult one to pick up, and isn't it? I think them being a carrier for it is quite common, or can be quite common, and it goes under the radar until it surfaces, I think, either in a horse moving that's been sold or going to competition. So I think strangles particularly will be a very useful one.
And then we're talking bacteria and not viruses. Exactly.
Karin, can you tell us a little bit about, I mean, obviously horses receive numerous vaccinations, but I mean, I've personally had a horse have influenza despite its vaccination. Do the vaccines simply expire and the horse misses its booster shot, or like when would a vaccinated horse still catch herpes or influenza, for instance?
And from that point of view, I wish we'd had a veterinarian with us, because I'm not a veterinarian. I just know when I talk to knowledgeable people in Sweden, at least, they say like vaccines would cover 60-70%. It's not 100% coverage, and some of the herpes don't even have a good vaccine. But that's a non-professional answer from me.
I suppose, Fiona, go ahead.
I was going to say they were vaccinating every 6 months, weren't they, for flu? I don't know whether it's gone back to a year, but certainly in racing, I think it's every 6 months here.
But I suppose this brings us to the question of how proactive should we be about testing for such things?
I know I have an answer, but that's not from the equine. It's my point of view.
And you have a product to sell.
Exactly. That's the basis.
Because I guess it's amazing how many, how you know, I mean, I am personally fascinated by Equine Health Tech. And yeah, I'm in the very fortunate position that I get to speak to lots of companies in this world, and I'm particularly, I mean, speak to people from fashion and apparel to saddles and tack, etc. But I am personally fascinated by some of the health tech products I've come across. And I guess for us as horse people, or whether you're an owner or you run a small or a big yard like me, or you're a coach, we have 1,000,001 things in a way to do, and lots of cost items. And I think we all try and do our absolute best for the horses in our care. But I guess sometimes we do end up being a little bit more reactive to things, to situations than we should be.
I think I had a good example, if I can share.
Please.
2 examples this week. One race horse coach bought some new horses from Ireland, and they're coming to Sweden later this week. She definitely wants to test them before they are brought into her stable. And the other one is, I think it's called harness trainer. Yeah. And she has like 100 horses in her stable, and a few of them have been to France for training, and they're coming back now to her stable. And again, she will test them so they've been out meeting other horses, coming back into the stable, and that's I think a good timing to do
This makes me wonder if, like, again, if I were Diagnostic Bio, probably, well, I was trying to think if one would speak to the shipping to the companies that are responsible for the shipping, to incorporate testing as part of their service or not. Because the one time I had had a horse with equine influenza, it had also just arrived. So that seems to be a classic case, and obviously horses are more susceptible to illness anyway when they're moving and they're stressed, etc. So I suppose that is it's interesting that came about. I suppose that might be an interesting way of being proactive without needing to go without in a way of testing all your horses every month sort of thing.
I think also I was just thinking about this, that, you know, if you go to a competition just for the day, you can keep your horse away from other horses and make sure it doesn't share anything or get breathed on. But if you take your horse to a competition for overnight or in temporary stables, you've got a very close next door neighbour. So actually, in those sort of situations, it would be really useful. That's where, and as you say, traveling when you have several horses who are being shipped by a shipper, then it's those sort of situations where things are spread and you just don't know.
No.
So it would be really useful for that.
And there's another angle to that when it comes to competition. There's we've had, I think, at least one this spring in Sweden, a competition that was closed due to H3N1, and they had to close for a week or something. And this is from a gambling perspective. How much do the gambling companies actually lose when you have to shut down a racing track for a week?
Big money. Yeah.
So there's also maybe an interest to be proactive there and to increase. And maybe you can't test all the horses, but you could test some that you can see some suspicious traces, or you just do randomly picked ones to make sure that everything is okay.
Is it something that would become cheaper the more you do, or would it not make it? Yeah.
So they're absolutely a volume, absolutely a volume dependent.
That would change it, wouldn't it? Yeah. Well, I think it's going to be a very useful product internationally.
So Karin, I know that it was obviously a new technology, but do you already have a feeling for what your typical type of customer would be? Do you already know?
No, I don't. I can't say that I know that. No. I would say that
that's natural at this early stage.
Yeah, it is early stage, and we are investigating that from different angles. And I think, like breeders, they have their things to look after, very expensive horses that they take care of. They definitely don't want H3N1, since that spontaneous abortion could happen. A lot of money involved in that. So I think there are different driving forces for different target groups here.
When do you think it will come to market?
We are having commercial pilots now in Sweden and Denmark, Norway, about 15. And we also gather all the user experience from that. Some things we want to make easier for them, even if we think it's easy, but we're standing in a lab, we're not standing in a stable. So some improvements in that, and also extension of, we would really like to add the strangles as well.
So do you know roughly when it may be a proper commercial product?
As soon as possible. It's my best answer to that.
The target date
but
for it.
It seems like everything is working fine. But with new technology, it takes time to introduce it. But the more we can talk about it and spread the word, the better, of course. For those who really wants to know about it. Harness is big in Sweden and big in France, and there are connections with our coaches into France as well. So maybe we can spread together with our coaches and so from Sweden.
And would it be something that's automatically advertised to vets first, or will it just go out to everybody who's interested?
I think we go mouth to mouth and networking to start with.
Right.
But when I can feel the veterinarians is coming to me, then I know I need to do something. I need to be more proactive in that way.
Fiona, do you have any idea what I don't know the process in the UK, I know the process here, but when, let's say you import a horse from anywhere, let's say it's a classic case, you import a horse from Europe, does it get quarantined normally when it lands in the UK?
Well, I don't know what happened. I've only been involved in horses going out, not coming back. But in any good stable, they will automatically quarantine any horse that comes in for at least, well, for generally 3 weeks, if they're good, because that's what should happen. Doesn't everywhere, and also in a good yard they will make horses be tested for strangles before they come in case they're a carrier. So those two things should happen, but it doesn't happen everywhere. It depends a bit on how high class the yard is and how expensive the horses are, I think, really. Like lots of things.
But I know in your network, Mans, you have FEI veterinarians.
We have a number. I was really hoping we'd have one join us.
Yeah, and in their rule book, if there's a clinical suspicion about a herpes virus at the competition that they are actually responsible for, then they need to take this swab test and send to a central lab and wait 48 hours. So to get the blessing from an FEI veterinarian and actually be able to impact on and say that if you had this one, you could actually have a lot quicker answer and take actions for the competition a lot earlier.